Welcome back. Tonight we are going to travel across the vast landscapes of early Texas. Before we begin, if you enjoy this kind of journey, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Before highways crossed the plains, before modern cities rose from the prairie, before oil fields, skyscrapers, and millions of residents transformed the state into what it is today, we are going back to a quieter Texas, a Texas of rivers and grasslands, a Texas of small settlements scattered across an enormous frontier, a Texas where life moved at the pace of horses, wagons, and the changing seasons. So find a comfortable position, allow your breathing to slow. Let the events of the day drift gently into the background. There is nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to accomplish. For now, all that matters is the story. As the sun begins setting over the Texas frontier, warm golden light stretches across endless fields of grass. The sky seems impossibly large. Clouds drift slowly overhead. The air is calm. Somewhere in the distance, a river winds its way through the landscape. Cottonwood trees line its banks. Birds move through the evening sky. The world feels peaceful. Yet beneath that peacefulness lies a story that would help shape the future of an entire region. Long before modern Texas existed, people called this land home. For thousands of years, indigenous nations lived throughout the region. They hunted, traded, built communities, and developed deep knowledge of the environment around them. The rivers, plains, forests, and coastlines formed part of their world. Generations lived and died beneath these same skies. The story of Texas did not begin with settlers. It began much earlier. And as we travel through the centuries tonight, that larger history remains present in the background. By the early 18th century, Spanish influence had spread across parts of what is now Texas. Spain viewed the region as an important frontier, not because of large cities, not because of major industries, but because of geography. Texas occupied a strategic position between Spanish territories and competing colonial powers. As a result, Spain established missions, forts, and settlements throughout the area. Imagine approaching one of those early settlements during the late 1700s. The landscape is wide and open. Travel has been difficult. Days of riding through rough terrain have left both people and animals exhausted. Then, at last, buildings appear on the horizon. A mission, a few homes, perhaps a small fort nearby. Smoke rises from cooking fires. Voices drift through the evening air. After days of isolation, the sight brings relief. These early settlements were often small, very small. Nothing like the cities that would eventually develop. Yet they represented something important, a foothold, a beginning, a place where people attempted to build communities in a challenging environment. Life was not easy. The climate could be harsh. Transportation was limited. Resources were often scarce. Distance separated settlements from one another. Yet people remained. They planted crops, raised livestock, built homes, established routines. The simple routines that transform a collection of buildings into a community. As the evening light continues fading across the Texas landscape, imagine a family living near one of these early settlements. Their home is modest, constructed with materials available nearby. The day has been long. Work began before sunrise. There were animals to care for, fields to maintain, repairs to complete, water to carry. Now, as darkness approaches, the family gathers together. A meal is prepared, stories are shared, plans for tomorrow are discussed. The scene feels familiar, because despite the centuries that separate us, many aspects of human life remain unchanged. People still gather together, still care for one another, still hope for better days ahead. Those universal experiences connect us to the people who lived in early Texas. As the last sunlight disappears beyond the horizon, lantern light begins appearing in scattered settlements, small points of warmth against the growing darkness. Each light represents a home, a family, a story. And tonight, we are going to follow those stories through the history of early Texas. Our journey is only beginning. Ahead lie rivers, missions, frontier towns, ranches, trading posts, and growing communities. Ahead lie the stories of people who crossed vast distances seeking opportunity. People who built settlements that would eventually become the foundation of modern Texas. For now, the frontier settles into evening. The stars begin appearing overhead. A gentle breeze moves through the grass. And beneath the enormous Texas sky, our journey through the early settlements of Texas begins. The evening settles gently across the Texas frontier. The last traces of orange sunlight have disappeared beyond the western horizon, leaving behind a sky filled with deep shades of blue and purple. Above us, the first stars are beginning to appear. The air has cooled. The wind moves softly through the tall grasses. And somewhere in the distance, the waters of a Texas river continue their slow journey toward the sea. Tonight, our path leads us to some of the earliest permanent settlements in Texas, the Spanish missions. Long before Texas became known for ranches, cattle drives, and frontier towns, missions stood as some of the most important communities in the region. These settlements were often built near rivers. Water was essential. Without reliable water, survival was difficult. With water came crops, livestock, transportation, and life itself. Imagine traveling across Texas sometime during the early 1700s. The journey is long and demanding. Days pass beneath the sun. The landscape stretches endlessly in every direction. Then one afternoon, a cluster of buildings appears ahead. Stone walls rise above the surrounding land. A bell tower reaches toward the sky. Fields extend outward from the settlement. Smoke drifts from cooking fires. After miles of wilderness, the sight feels reassuring. You have arrived at a mission. The missions served many purposes. They were religious centers. They were communities. They were places where agriculture, trade, and daily life could develop in a region that remained largely unsettled by Europeans. Life at a mission followed a rhythm, a routine shaped by work, worship, seasons, and the needs of the community. Imagine waking before sunrise. The air is cool. Darkness still covers much of the landscape. Gradually, the settlement begins to stir. People rise from their beds. Fires are prepared. Animals are tended. The day begins quietly. Then from the bell tower, a bell rings. Its sound carries across the surrounding fields. The mission is awake. For many residents, the day ahead will involve physical labor. Fields require attention. Buildings need maintenance. Food must be prepared. Livestock must be cared for. There's always work to do. Yet amid the labor, life continues in familiar ways. Children learn skills from older generations. Families share meals. Neighbors help one another. Friendships form. Communities grow. The missions were not simply structures of stone and wood. They were living places. Places filled with people trying to build stable lives on a challenging frontier. One of the most famous mission settlements would eventually become part of a city known throughout the world, San Antonio. Today, millions of people know the city. Yet centuries ago, it began as a small frontier settlement, a collection of missions and nearby communities situated along the San Antonio River. Imagine seeing the area during those early years. The river flows gently through the landscape. Trees provide shade along its banks. Fields stretch beyond the settlement. Small buildings cluster near the missions. The population is modest. No one could possibly imagine the enormous city that would one day grow there. At the time, it is simply a frontier community, one among many. Yet history often begins in such places. Quiet places, modest places, places that seem ordinary while history unfolds around them. As the night deepens, let us walk slowly through one of these early settlements. The moon has risen. Lantern light glows from windows. The sounds of the day have faded. Most people are asleep. Only a few lights remain visible. Perhaps a guard keeping watch. Perhaps someone finishing a late task. Otherwise, the community rests. The silence feels peaceful. And beneath that silence lies an important truth. Building a settlement required patience. Growth happened slowly. Years passed, sometimes decades. People planted trees they might never see fully grown, constructed buildings that would outlast them, created communities for future generations. There is something admirable about that kind of long-term thinking, the willingness to build for a future you may never personally experience. Many of the early settlers possessed exactly that mindset. As we continue our journey through the night, another important feature of Texas comes into view: the rivers. Throughout the history of early Texas settlements, rivers played a central role. The San Antonio River, the Brazos River, the Colorado River, the Trinity River, the Guadalupe River. These waterways shaped where people lived. They provided water for crops, water for animals, water for daily life. Settlements often appeared near rivers for simple practical reasons. Without water, communities struggled. With water, communities could grow. Imagine standing beside the Brazos River sometime during the late 18th century. The moon reflects softly upon the water. The current moves steadily downstream. Cottonwood trees line the banks. The sounds of insects fill the night air. Nearby, a small settlement sleeps. Its future remains uncertain. Like every frontier settlement, success is never guaranteed. Floods may come, drought may come, economic conditions may change. Yet people continue building, continue planting, continue hoping. That willingness to move forward despite uncertainty appears again and again throughout Texas history. It becomes one of the defining characteristics of the frontier. As the stars multiply overhead, our journey carries us farther across the landscape. The missions remain behind us now, their bells silent in the darkness, their stone walls illuminated by moonlight. Ahead lie new settlements, new communities, and new stories. Soon, a new wave of settlers will begin arriving in Texas. Families seeking land, farmers seeking opportunity, people willing to leave familiar lives behind in exchange for possibility. Their arrival will transform the region. Entire new settlements will appear, towns will grow, roads will develop, communities will expand. But for now, Texas remains frontier, vast, quiet, filled with potential. The rivers continue flowing, the stars continue shining, and scattered across the landscape, the earliest settlements of Texas rest peacefully beneath the night sky. Their story is only beginning, and so is ours. The night has settled fully across Texas now. The stars shine brightly above the frontier. The rivers move quietly through the darkness. The missions rest beneath the moonlight, their stone walls standing watch over the landscape. For generations, these settlements represented some of the most important communities in the region. Yet change was coming, slowly at first, then more quickly. The Texas frontier was about to enter a new chapter, and with that chapter would come new settlers, new towns, and new dreams. As we continue our journey tonight, imagine standing beside the Brazos River during the early 1820s. The river winds through the landscape beneath an enormous sky. Tall grasses sway gently in the breeze. The surrounding land appears almost limitless. To many people, that land represented opportunity. Opportunity in its purest form. The chance to build something new. The chance to start again. The chance to create a future that seemed impossible elsewhere. At this time, A man named Stephen F. Austin would become closely associated with that opportunity. Today, historians often refer to him as the father of Texas, but before history granted him such titles, he was simply a man tasked with helping establish new settlements in a vast and largely undeveloped region. Imagine arriving in Texas as part of one of those early settlement groups. The journey itself would have been difficult. Families packed their belongings into wagons. They traveled long distances, crossed rivers, endured storms, faced uncertainty, and all the while, they carried a simple hope that life on the Texas frontier might offer something better. When they finally arrived, many found exactly what they expected: open land, wide skies, endless possibilities, and countless challenges, because the frontier demanded hard work. There were no ready-made towns waiting for most settlers, no established neighborhoods, no paved roads. The communities had to be built. Everything had to be built. Imagine a family selecting a piece of land near a river. The location seems promising. Water is nearby. The soil appears fertile. Trees provide building materials. The decision is made. This will be home. The next task is constructing shelter, a cabin. Simple at first, practical rather than elegant. The goal is protection. Protection from weather, protection from animals. A place where a family can rest after long days of work. Building even a small cabin requires tremendous effort. Trees must be cut, logs transported, materials prepared. Every step demands physical labor, yet little by little the structure takes shape. A wall, then another, a roof, a door, windows. Eventually a home stands where previously there had been only open land. The process is slow, but deeply satisfying. Many settlers experience moments exactly like this: the creation of a home from nothing, the transformation of a wilderness into community. As we move quietly through the night, imagine one of these early settlements a few years after its founding. The population remains small, perhaps a few dozen families, maybe slightly more. The settlement consists of scattered cabins, small farms, and a few gathering places. Everyone knows everyone. Neighbors depend upon one another. Life remains challenging, but routines are beginning to emerge. Children help with chores. Farmers tend crops. Livestock graze nearby. People gather to exchange news and stories. A community is forming, and communities often begin with simple things: shared labor, shared experiences, shared hopes. As the moon rises higher above the Texas frontier, let us pause and consider the importance of rivers once again. The rivers shaped nearly every aspect of settlement. Families preferred locations near reliable water sources. Farmers needed water for crops. Livestock required water. Travel often followed river valleys. Entire communities developed around these natural resources. Imagine the Brazos River at night. Moonlight reflects softly upon the water. The current moves steadily through the darkness. Nearby, a small settlement sleeps. Tomorrow, the river will help sustain another day of frontier life. The river asks for nothing, yet provides everything. It becomes a silent partner in the success of the community. Many of Texas's earliest settlements grew along rivers for exactly that reason. Water made survival possible, and survival was never guaranteed. The frontier could be unpredictable. Drought sometimes affected crops. Floods occasionally damaged property. Illness presented serious challenges. Distance separated families from larger settlements. Yet despite these difficulties, people continued arriving. Word spread, land was available, opportunities existed, and slowly the population increased. Imagine traveling through Texas during the late 1820s. A journey that once passed through mostly empty landscapes now reveals signs of growth. New cabins appear, Additional farms emerge, roads become slightly more defined. The changes are subtle yet unmistakable. The frontier is expanding. Each new family contributes something, a skill, a trade, knowledge, labor. The collective effort gradually transforms the region. As our journey continues, another important institution begins appearing within these settlements: the school. At first, education often takes place informally. Parents teach children at home, neighbors share knowledge. Practical skills are passed from one generation to the next. But as communities grow, dedicated schools begin to appear. Imagine a simple schoolhouse standing near a frontier settlement. The building is modest, perhaps only a single room. Inside, students of various ages learn together. The teacher works with limited resources, yet the purpose is clear. Education represents investment in the future. Communities establish schools because they expect children to remain, because they expect growth, because they believe tomorrow matters. The appearance of a school often signals something important. The settlement is becoming permanent, no longer simply a collection of temporary homes, but a community, a place where families intend to stay. As the night grows quieter, lantern lights begin disappearing one by one across the frontier. Families prepare for sleep. The day's work is finished. Tomorrow will bring another long day. Fields require attention. Buildings require maintenance. Animals require care. The responsibilities never truly end. Yet there is satisfaction in the work, a sense of purpose, the feeling of building something meaningful. That feeling helped sustain many early settlers through difficult times. They were not simply surviving. They were creating communities, creating futures, creating the foundations of towns and cities that would one day become part of modern Texas. Of course, they could not know exactly what the future would hold. No one could. But beneath the Texas stars, surrounded by rivers, grasslands, and open skies, they believed in possibility. And sometimes belief itself becomes one of the most powerful tools available to a frontier community. The moon continues its journey overhead. The rivers continue flowing through the darkness. The settlements rest peacefully beneath the night sky. And across the Texas frontier, a new chapter of history is quietly unfolding. A chapter that will bring growth, change, and challenges unlike anything these early settlers have yet experienced. For now, however, the frontier sleeps, the stars shine brightly above, and our journey through the early settlements of Texas continues onward into the night. The night has grown calm across the Texas frontier. The stars shine brightly overhead. The rivers continue their slow journey through the darkness. And scattered across the landscape, small settlements rest beneath the vast Texas sky. For the families living here, another day has come to an end. Lanterns glow softly through cabin windows. Cooking fires burn low. The sounds of work have faded. Now the frontier settles into a peaceful rhythm. Tonight, let us spend some time exploring daily life within these early settlements. Because while major events often fill history books, most people experienced history through ordinary days, ordinary mornings, ordinary evenings, ordinary moments shared with family, friends, and neighbors. Imagine waking up in Austin's colony sometime around the year 1828. The first light of dawn appears beyond the horizon. The air is cool. Mist hangs lightly above the nearby river. A rooster calls in the distance. Inside a small cabin, a family begins to wake. The day will start early. On the frontier, there is always work waiting. The cabin itself is simple. The walls are built from logs cut from nearby forests. The roof provides shelter from rain and summer heat. Furniture is practical rather than decorative. Every object serves a purpose. Life on the frontier leaves little room for unnecessary things. Yet despite its simplicity, the cabin feels warm, comfortable, home. Outside, the landscape stretches endlessly in every direction. Tall grass moves gently in the breeze. The sky seems enormous, and somewhere nearby, the Brazos River flows steadily through the countryside. The river is important, perhaps the most important feature of all. It provides water for people, water for animals, water for crops. Without it, settlement would be far more difficult. Many families chose their land carefully, ensuring access to reliable water. The success of an entire farm often depended upon that decision. As the sun rises higher, the workday begins. Imagine a farmer stepping outside shortly after dawn. The air still carries the coolness of morning. Soon the Texas sun will grow warm, then hot. The best work is often completed early in the day. Fields need attention. Fences require repairs. Livestock must be checked. Tools need maintenance. Every task contributes to the survival of the family. Life is demanding. Yet there is satisfaction in seeing the results of one's labor: a growing crop, a sturdy fence, healthy animals, a well-maintained home. Progress may come slowly, but it is visible, and that visible progress encourages people to keep moving forward. As our journey continues through the night, imagine walking through one of these settlements during the middle of the day. The community remains small. Perhaps only a few dozen families live nearby. Yet there is activity everywhere. Children help with chores. Farmers work in their fields. Women manage households, gardens, food preparation, and countless other responsibilities. Neighbors occasionally visit one another to exchange news or assistance. Life depends heavily upon cooperation. The frontier rewards people who work together. Imagine a family needing help raising a new barn. The project is too large for one household alone. Word spreads throughout the settlement. Soon neighbors arrive. Some bring tools, others bring wagons. Everyone contributes. The work is completed faster than any single family could manage, and when another neighbor requires help in the future, the favor will be returned. This spirit of cooperation becomes one of the foundations of frontier communities. People understand that success is rarely achieved alone. As afternoon arrives, the settlement grows quieter. The sun stands high overhead. Temperatures rise. Work continues, but at a slower pace. Shade becomes valuable. Large trees near rivers often become gathering places. Travelers pause beneath them. Families rest beneath them. Children play nearby. The natural landscape shapes daily life in countless ways. Imagine sitting beneath one of those trees and looking across the Texas frontier. Miles of open land stretch toward the horizon. No highways, no cities, no power lines. Only grasslands, rivers, forests, and sky. The scale of the landscape feels almost impossible to comprehend. Many settlers spoke about the vastness of Texas, the sense that there was always another horizon beyond the one you could see. That vastness inspired some people, and it intimidated others. Yet for many settlers, it represented opportunity, the chance to build something new, the chance to create a future. As evening approaches, another important aspect of community life begins to appear: gatherings. Frontier settlements were often isolated. Neighbors might live miles apart. As a result, social gatherings became especially meaningful. Imagine a Saturday evening gathering near a settlement. Families arrive by horse and wagon. Children run and play. Adults exchange stories and news. Food is shared. Friendships strengthen. These gatherings provide more than entertainment. They help create community. People feel connected, supported, part of something larger than themselves. Many early churches served a similar role. Religious services brought people together, but churches often function as community centers as well. Meetings were held there, news was shared there, important decisions were discussed there. The church became a gathering place for the settlement as a whole. As darkness falls once again, lanterns begin glowing across the frontier. The workday comes to an end. Families gather inside their homes, meals are prepared, stories are told, children grow sleepy after long days of activity. Outside, the stars begin appearing overhead, just as they do tonight. Imagine a child stepping outside before bedtime. The sky is filled with stars, far more stars than most people see today. The Milky Way stretches across the heavens like a river of light. The child gazes upward in wonder, perhaps imagining distant places, perhaps dreaming about the future. The future remains uncertain for everyone living on the frontier. No one knows exactly what will happen. Some settlements will grow into towns. Some towns will grow into cities. Others will quietly fade away. But tonight, none of that matters. Tonight, families rest beneath the stars. The rivers continue flowing. The grasslands move gently in the wind. And across the Texas frontier, ordinary life continues. Those ordinary lives may seem small when viewed against the backdrop of history. Yet they are the very foundation upon which history is built. Every town begins with families. Every community begins with neighbors. Every future begins with people willing to work, hope, and dream. And beneath the endless Texas sky, those dreams are slowly taking shape. Our journey continues onward through the night. Ahead lie new settlements, new challenges, and new chapters in the story of early Texas. But for now, the frontier sleeps peacefully beneath the stars. The Texas frontier sleeps beneath a sky full of stars. The settlements we visited earlier have grown quiet now. Lanterns have been extinguished. Cooking fires have faded into glowing embers. Families rest within their cabins while the night stretches peacefully across the land. The rivers continue flowing through the darkness, steady, reliable, unhurried, just as they have for thousands of years. Tonight, as our journey through early Texas continues, we follow those rivers. Because rivers were more than sources of water. They were pathways, connections, lifelines that linked distant settlements across an enormous frontier. Imagine standing beside the Brazos River sometime in the early 1830s. Moonlight reflects softly upon the moving water. The current flows southward through the sleeping countryside. Along its banks, scattered farms and small communities rest beneath the stars. Yet during the daytime, this river becomes a busy corridor of activity. Travelers follow its course. Farmers establish homes nearby. Goods move between settlements. News travels from one community to another. The river quietly helps connect a growing frontier. Many of the earliest Texas settlements developed in relative isolation. Families might live miles apart. Roads were often little more than rough trails. Travel could be slow and difficult. But over time, small trading posts began appearing throughout the region. These simple establishments would become some of the most important gathering places on the frontier. Imagine approaching a trading post after a long journey. The road has been dusty, the day has been warm, the landscape has stretched endlessly before you. Then, at last, a building appears, perhaps a general store, perhaps a small warehouse, perhaps a collection of structures serving travelers and nearby settlers. Whatever form it takes, the trading post feels welcoming. People gather there. Supplies can be purchased there. Information can be exchanged there. The frontier suddenly feels a little less isolated. Inside, shelves hold a variety of goods, tools, fabric, food, seeds, hardware, items that may have traveled hundreds or even thousands of miles before arriving in Texas. The arrival of such goods represents something remarkable: connection. The settlements are no longer entirely alone. They are becoming part of larger networks of trade and communication. As we continue our nighttime journey, imagine a typical day at one of these trading posts. A farmer arrives early in the morning. He needs supplies for his family. A traveler stops briefly while heading toward another settlement. Neighbors exchange news. Children explore the area while adults conduct business. Conversations fill the air. Stories are shared. Information spreads. In many ways, the trading post serves as the social center of the community. People come not only to buy and sell, they come to connect. Human beings have always sought connection, and on the frontier, opportunities for connection were especially valuable. As more settlers arrived in Texas, these small centers of activity began encouraging additional growth. New farms appeared nearby. Roads became more established. Services expanded. Little by little, isolated settlements evolved into communities, and communities evolved into towns. The process was gradual, often so gradual that residents hardly noticed it happening. Imagine living in a settlement for 10 years. At first, there are only a handful of families. Then a few more arrive. A trading post opens. A school appears. A church is established. Roads improve. By the end of the decade, the settlement feels completely different. Growth occurs one family at a time, one building at a time, one opportunity at a time. As midnight settles across the Texas frontier, another important element of community life emerges: travelers. Early Texas attracted people from many different backgrounds. Some came seeking land, others sought business opportunities. Some hoped to start over after difficult experiences elsewhere. Others simply followed the promise of a better future. The roads and rivers carried a constant stream of movement. Imagine meeting a traveler at a frontier trading post. Perhaps he has journeyed for days, perhaps weeks. He carries stories from distant settlements, news from faraway places, descriptions of communities you have never seen. For frontier residents, such encounters could be fascinating. The world often felt much larger than the boundaries of a single settlement. Travelers helped bridge those distances. They brought information, perspective, and occasionally inspiration. Many future settlers first learned about Texas through stories shared by travelers. A description of fertile land, a report about a growing community, a rumor of opportunity. Such stories encourage people to make journeys of their own. As we move quietly through the night, let us follow one of those travelers. Imagine riding horseback beneath the stars. The road winds through open prairie. The sky overhead seems endless. The only sounds are the horse's steady footsteps and the distant calls of nighttime creatures. Hours pass peacefully. Eventually, a lantern appears ahead, then another, a settlement, small perhaps, but welcoming. The sight brings comfort, a place to rest, a place to share a meal, a place to exchange news. Moments like these occurred countless times across early Texas. The frontier could be challenging, but it also fostered a strong sense of hospitality. Travelers depended upon the kindness of others, and communities often benefited from the arrival of new people and new ideas. As the night continues, the role of rivers becomes even more apparent. Some settlements prosper because of their location. Communities situated near transportation routes often attract additional trade. Additional trade encourages additional growth. Soon, a simple trading post becomes a small town. A small town becomes a regional center. The process repeats across the landscape. Throughout history, geography has shaped human settlement. Texas was no exception. Rivers influenced where people lived. Roads influenced where businesses developed. Natural resources influenced where communities prospered. The frontier may have appeared open and limitless, yet the patterns of growth often followed surprisingly practical considerations. Water, transportation, trade, these forces quietly shape the future. As the stars continue shining above us, imagine standing beside a frontier road and watching the settlement around you slowly grow. A new family arrives, a new business opens, a school welcomes additional students. The community becomes stronger, more connected, more confident about the future. For the people living there, optimism feels justified, and in many cases it is. Some of these settlements will survive for generations. Some will eventually become important Texas towns. Others will fade into history. But at this moment, under the stars, every possibility remains open. The future has not yet been written, and that uncertainty gives the frontier a special kind of beauty. As the hours pass, the Texas night remains calm. The rivers continue flowing. The roads continue stretching across the prairie. The trading posts stand quietly beneath the stars. And throughout the settlements of early Texas, families sleep peacefully while their communities continue growing one day at a time. Ahead, new challenges and opportunities await. The frontier is changing, more settlers are arriving, new towns are forming, and the story of Texas is beginning to accelerate. But for now, the night remains gentle, the stars remain bright, and our journey continues slowly onward through the growing communities of early Texas. The night continues across the Texas frontier. Above us, the stars shine with quiet brilliance. The rivers move steadily through the darkness. The roads stretch across prairies and woodlands, connecting settlements that only a few years earlier had existed as scattered cabins beside rivers and streams. The frontier is changing, slowly, patiently, one family at a time, one building at a time, one dream at a time. Tonight, as we continue our journey through the early settlements of Texas, we begin to see something new emerging from the landscape. Towns, not large cities, not bustling centers of industry, but true frontier towns, places where people gather, trade, learn, celebrate, and build communities that feel increasingly permanent. Imagine arriving in one of these towns sometime during the early 1830s. The sun is long since set, but let us picture the town as it would appear during the day. A dirt road runs through the center of the settlement. A handful of buildings stand nearby, perhaps a general store, a blacksmith shop, a small church, several homes, a stable. Nothing grand, nothing extravagant. Yet to the people who live there, the town represents progress. It represents stability. It represents the possibility of a future. As the settlement grows, each new building serves a purpose, and every purpose strengthens the community. Let us begin with the blacksmith. Throughout the frontier, blacksmiths were among the most important members of any town. Imagine approaching a blacksmith shop on a warm afternoon. The rhythmic sound of hammers striking metal echoes across the settlement. Inside, sparks fly as iron is heated and shaped. The blacksmith repairs wagon wheels, creates tools, shoes horses, fixes broken equipment. Without skilled tradespeople like these, frontier life would become far more difficult. Many settlers depended upon the blacksmith's work, and because everyone eventually needed repairs, the shop often became a gathering place as well. People arrived with broken tools and left with both repairs and conversation. News spread quickly in such places. The blacksmith often knew what was happening throughout the community. As we continue through the sleeping Texas landscape, imagine another important building, the general store. If the blacksmith repaired the tools of the frontier, the general store supplied many of the essentials. Imagine opening the wooden door and stepping inside. Shelves line the walls, barrels stand in corners. Tools, fabric, flour, coffee, seeds, and household goods fill the room. Some items have traveled remarkable distances to reach this place, perhaps by ship, perhaps by wagon, Perhaps along muddy roads that cross hundreds of miles of frontier, every item represents a connection to the wider world. The store owner greets customers by name. Children occasionally accompany their parents and stare curiously at goods displayed on shelves. Farmers discuss crops. Travelers share stories. The store becomes more than a business. It becomes part of the social life of the town. As communities continue growing, another institution begins appearing more regularly: churches. Regardless of denomination, churches often played an important role in early settlements. They provided spiritual guidance, but they also served practical functions. Meetings were held there, community events took place there, important announcements were shared there. Imagine a Sunday morning in a small Texas town. Families arrive by horse and wagon, neighbors greet one another, children play nearby before services begin. For many residents, these gatherings provide an opportunity to reconnect after busy weeks spent working on farms and homesteads. The church helps strengthen the bonds that hold the community together, and communities depend upon those bonds. As midnight drifts quietly across the frontier, let us think about another important feature of growing towns: schools. We touched briefly upon schools earlier. Now, as settlements become larger and more organized, education becomes increasingly important. Imagine a small schoolhouse standing near the center of town. Its construction is simple, its resources are limited, yet inside, something valuable is taking place. Knowledge is being passed from one generation to the next. Students of different ages learn together. Older children help younger ones. Teachers work hard with the materials available. The schoolhouse represents hope. Hope that the settlement will endure. Hope that children will have opportunities. Hope that the future will be brighter than the present. These hopes appear throughout frontier history, and they help explain why communities invest in education even when resources are scarce. As we continue walking through this imaginary town beneath the stars, another sound begins to emerge: laughter. Community life is not only about work, people also seek moments of joy. Imagine a gathering held after harvest season. Neighbors bring food. Musicians play simple tunes. Families share stories. Children run through open fields. For a few hours, the hardships of frontier life fade into the background. Events like these help create memories. They help transform settlements into true communities. And those memories often remain with people long after they leave. As the night deepens, our frontier town grows quiet once more. Lanterns glow softly in windows. The blacksmith shop stands silent. The store is closed. The schoolhouse waits for another day. Yet there is a sense of permanence now that did not exist earlier. The town feels established, rooted, connected to the landscape around it. Many residents believe it will continue growing, and in some cases they are correct. Some frontier towns will eventually become important regional centers. Others will remain small but stable. A few will disappear. At this point in the story, however, nobody knows which future awaits their community. The uncertainty remains, and yet people continue building. That willingness to invest in an uncertain future may be one of the most remarkable characteristics of early Texas settlers. They built schools before they knew how large their communities would become. They opened businesses before they knew whether customers would arrive. They planted orchards before they knew whether they would ever enjoy the harvest. Again and again, they chose optimism. Again and again, they chose to believe in tomorrow. The stars continue shining above us. The frontier remains peaceful. And somewhere in the darkness, dozens of small Texas towns rest quietly beneath the night sky, each one filled with dreams, each one filled with possibilities, each one contributing another chapter to the story of Texas. Ahead lie even greater changes, more settlers, more towns, new roads, new opportunities. The frontier is expanding, the pace of growth is increasing, and the quiet settlements we have visited tonight are becoming part of something much larger than themselves. But for now, the town sleeps peacefully. The church stands silent beneath the stars. The schoolhouse waits for morning. The store and blacksmith shop rest after another day of service. And across the Texas frontier, the story of settlement continues to unfold one peaceful night at a time. The frontier town sleeps peacefully beneath the stars. The general store is quiet. The blacksmith's forge has gone cold for the night. The schoolhouse stands silent beneath the moonlight. Along the roads and riverbanks of Texas, families rest after another day of work. The stars above seem endless, bright points of light scattered across an enormous sky. Tonight, as our journey through the early settlements of Texas continues, we will explore a side of frontier life that every settler came to know. Challenges, not dramatic challenges, not the kind often portrayed in stories and films, but the quiet, everyday difficulties that shaped life on the frontier. Because building a settlement was never easy. The people who came to Texas found opportunity, but they also found uncertainty, and learning to live with that uncertainty became part of daily life. Imagine waking one morning in a frontier settlement along the Brazos River. The air feels different. The sky appears darker than usual. Clouds gather along the horizon. The wind begins to strengthen. Neighbors glance upward and quietly discuss the weather. Out on the frontier, people paid close attention to the sky. Weather could affect nearly every aspect of life. A storm might bring much-needed rain, or it might damage crops. Strong winds could create difficulties for travelers. Flooding could temporarily isolate communities. Nature played an important role in the lives of early settlers. And unlike modern residents, they had little warning before conditions changed. Imagine standing on the porch of a cabin as a thunderstorm approaches. The clouds grow larger, the air becomes cooler. The first distant rumble of thunder echoes across the prairie. Then the rain arrives, heavy drops strike rooftops. The ground begins absorbing water. Lightning briefly illuminates the landscape. Inside, families gather together and wait for the storm to pass. Moments like these occurred throughout the history of early Texas. Most storms came and went without causing serious problems, but they reminded settlers of something important. The frontier could never be fully controlled. People could prepare. They could adapt, but they could not command nature. As we continue through the peaceful night, another challenge comes to mind. Distance. Texas was vast. It still is today. But for early settlers, that vastness felt even greater. Travel required time and effort. A journey that might take a modern traveler an hour could require an entire day or more. Imagine needing supplies from a neighboring town. The trip cannot be completed with a quick drive. Instead, horses must be prepared. A wagon may need loading. The journey begins early. Roads are rough. Crossings can be difficult. Travel becomes an event rather than a simple task. This reality shaped the development of settlements. Communities learned to become self-reliant. Families stored supplies. Neighbors helped one another. Planning ahead became essential. As midnight drifts quietly across the frontier, let us think about another challenge: isolation. Many families live miles from their nearest neighbors. Imagine standing outside a cabin on a clear evening. The nearest settlement lies several miles away. The road is empty. The prairie stretches endlessly in every direction. The stars fill the sky. The beauty of the scene is undeniable. Yet it also carries a sense of solitude. Some settlers appreciated that solitude. Others found it difficult. Human beings are social by nature. We seek connection, conversation, community. Frontier settlements helped provide those things. Church services, trading posts, community gatherings, school events. These occasions brought people together and reduced the sense of isolation that sometimes accompanied frontier life. As our journey continues, imagine a family preparing for winter. Texas winters are generally milder than those in many northern regions, yet winter still brought challenges. Temperatures could drop unexpectedly. Cold winds could sweep across the plains. Supplies needed to be stored, firewood gathered, homes prepared. Frontier life encouraged careful planning. People learned to think ahead. A family that prepared well often weathered difficult seasons more comfortably. A family that failed to prepare might face hardship. Experience became a valuable teacher, and over time, settlers gained knowledge about the land around them. They learned which crops grew best, which areas were prone to flooding, which routes remained reliable during bad weather. The frontier rewarded observation, patience, adaptability. As the stars continue their slow movement overhead, another challenge emerges. Illness. Medical care in early settlements was limited. Doctors might live many miles away. Travel could be difficult. Families often relied upon practical knowledge passed from generation to generation. Neighbors helped care for one another during difficult times. Communities supported families facing hardship. These acts of kindness strengthened the bonds between settlers. When people depend upon one another, communities often become remarkably resilient. And resilience appears again and again throughout the history of Texas settlements. Imagine a difficult year. Perhaps a crop performs poorly. Perhaps a storm causes damage. Perhaps travel becomes unusually difficult. The community faces challenges, yet people continue moving forward. They repair buildings, replant fields, share resources, adjust plans. The settlement endures. This pattern repeats throughout frontier history, not because settlers never faced problems, but because they learned how to respond to them. As the night grows deeper, the wind moves gently across the prairie. Tall grasses sway beneath the moonlight. The rivers continue flowing through valleys and woodlands. The settlements remain quiet, and it becomes clear that many of the greatest frontier challenges were not dramatic events. They were ordinary difficulties encountered day after day: a broken wagon wheel, a delayed supply shipment, a damaged fence, a failed crop, a long journey, small obstacles that required patience and determination. Those qualities helped shape the character of early Texas communities: patience, determination, adaptability, the willingness to continue despite uncertainty. As we move slowly through the sleeping landscape, imagine a settler standing outside his cabin late at night. The day's work is finished. The stars shine overhead. The settlement rests quietly nearby. The future remains uncertain, yet he feels hopeful, not because life is easy, but because progress is visible. The crops are growing, the town is expanding, new families continue arriving. The challenges are real, but so are the opportunities. And that balance between difficulty and possibility defines much of frontier life. The Texas settlements we have visited tonight did not grow because conditions were perfect. They grew because people believed the effort was worthwhile, because they believed the future held promise, and because they were willing to work toward that future one day at a time. The stars remain bright, the prairie remains peaceful, the frontier town sleeps quietly beneath the night sky, and across early Texas, countless families continue building lives amid both challenges and opportunities. Ahead lie new chapters, new settlements, and new stories. But for now, the night remains calm. The wind moves softly through the grass. The rivers continue their patient journey, and the settlements of Texas rest peacefully beneath the endless stars. The Texas frontier rests quietly beneath the stars. The storms have passed. The roads are empty. The rivers continue their steady journey through the darkness. reflecting moonlight as they wind between forests, prairies, and growing settlements. Across the frontier, lanterns have been extinguished. Families sleep peacefully within their homes. The day's work is finished. Tomorrow's work can wait until sunrise. For now, the night belongs to silence. And tonight, as our journey through the early settlements of Texas continues, we turn our attention to the people who gave these communities their heart, the families, the parents, the grandparents, and especially the children. History often focuses on explorers, leaders, and major events, yet most people experience history through family life, through ordinary days, through meals shared around a table, through conversations before bedtime, through watching children grow from one season to the next. The settlements of early Texas were no different. Imagine a small cabin standing beside a river sometime in the early 1830s. The home is simple. The furniture is modest. The walls are built from logs cut nearby. Yet inside, the cabin feels warm and welcoming. A family lives here, and like families everywhere, their lives revolve around routines, morning routines, work routines, evening routines, the familiar rhythms that bring structure to daily life. Imagine the beginning of a typical day. The first light of dawn appears outside. Parents are already awake. Breakfast is being prepared. The smell of food fills the cabin. Soon, children begin waking as well. Some rub sleep from their eyes. Others leap from bed full of energy. The day is about to begin. Unlike many children today, frontier children often carried significant responsibilities from an early age, not because anyone wished to burden them, but because every member of the household contributed to the family's success. A settlement required teamwork. A farm required teamwork. A family required teamwork. Children helped gather water, fed animals, collected firewood, worked in gardens, assisted with household tasks. The responsibilities varied by age, ability, and circumstance, yet almost everyone had a role. Imagine a young boy walking toward a pasture shortly after sunrise. The grass still carries traces of morning dew. Birds call from nearby trees. The sky is bright and clear. His task may be simple, perhaps checking livestock, perhaps repairing a section of fence. Yet completing the task contributes to the family as a whole. Now imagine a young girl helping prepare food inside the cabin. She learns skills from older family members, recipes, techniques, household knowledge accumulated over generations. Much of frontier education happened this way, through observation, through practice, through participation in daily life. Knowledge passed naturally from one generation to the next. As the morning continues, another important part of childhood appears: learning. We spoke earlier about schoolhouses. Now let us step inside one. Imagine a one-room school standing near a growing Texas settlement. The building is simple. Wooden desks fill the room. Sunlight streams through the windows. Students of various ages sit together. Some are learning letters. Others practice mathematics. Still others study geography, reading, or history. The teacher faces a unique challenge. Students are at different levels. Resources are limited, yet learning continues. Frontier communities placed great value on education, not because schooling was easy to provide, but because parents believed it mattered. Education represented opportunity, possibility, the future. For many families, building a schoolhouse signaled confidence that the settlement would endure, that children would grow up there, that the community had a future worth investing in. As our nighttime journey continues, imagine recess outside that schoolhouse. Children race across open fields. Games are invented. Friendships form. Laughter echoes through the air. For a little while, lessons are forgotten. Responsibilities are forgotten. The simple joy of childhood takes center stage. And despite the differences between then and now, many of those moments feel familiar. Children have always found ways to play, to imagine, to explore, to create adventures from ordinary surroundings. The frontier offered plenty of opportunities for exploration. Rivers, fields, woodlands, creeks. Every landscape became part of a child's world. Imagine a group of children spending a summer afternoon near a river. The water moves gently past. Trees provide shade. Interesting stones and plants invite curiosity. The natural world becomes both playground and classroom. Many children developed a deep understanding of their environment simply by spending time within it. As the day moves toward evening, family life becomes the center of attention once again. The workday begins winding down. Animals are cared for, tools are stored away. The heat of the afternoon starts to fade. Families gather for supper. Imagine a table surrounded by family members. The meal may be simple, yet the conversation is rich. Stories are shared, news is discussed, plans are made. These evening gatherings often became some of the most important moments of the day, a chance to reconnect, a chance to reflect, a chance to enjoy one another's company. After supper, the pace slows. Perhaps someone reads aloud. Perhaps stories are told from memory. Perhaps older family members share experiences from earlier years. Before widespread entertainment, storytelling played an important role in daily life. Stories connected generations, preserved knowledge, and helped pass long evenings pleasantly. Imagine sitting outside after dark. The stars shine brilliantly overhead. The Texas sky appears enormous. Children look upward and ask questions. Parents answer as best they can. Constellations are identified. Dreams are discussed. The future feels wide open, and in many ways it is. The frontier still holds countless possibilities. As midnight settles across the landscape, another thought emerges. Many of the children growing up in these settlements would eventually witness tremendous change. The small communities of their childhood would expand. New roads would appear. More settlers would arrive. Towns would grow. Technology would advance. The Texas they inherited would look very different from the Texas their parents first encountered. Yet the values learned during childhood often remained. Hard work, responsibility, cooperation, respect for neighbors, connection to the land. These lessons helped shape generations of Texans, and they helped strengthen the communities that continued growing across the frontier. As the stars continue their quiet journey overhead, the settlements remain peaceful. Families sleep within their homes. The schoolhouse waits for another day of lessons. The rivers flow steadily through the darkness. And throughout early Texas, countless children dream of futures they cannot yet imagine. Some will become farmers, some merchants, some teachers, some builders, some leaders. All will contribute in their own way to the story of Texas. For now, however, they are simply children, sleeping peacefully beneath the stars, growing up in a land of rivers, prairies, and opportunity. And as the night carries us onward, our journey through the early settlements of Texas continues, one quiet story at a time. The Texas frontier remains peaceful beneath the stars. The schoolhouse stands quiet. The cabins rest in darkness. The rivers continue flowing through valleys and woodlands, following paths they have traveled for countless generations. Across the settlements we have visited, families sleep soundly after another day of work. The night feels calm, steady, unhurried. And as we continue our journey through the early settlements of Texas, we arrive at a chapter that helps shape the future of the frontier more than almost any other, the story of ranches and livestock. When many people think of Texas today, images of cattle often come to mind. Wide open grasslands, cowboys on horseback, large ranches stretching toward distant horizons, Yet those familiar images did not appear overnight. They developed gradually, growing alongside the settlements we have been exploring throughout our journey. Imagine standing on a hill overlooking the Texas countryside sometime during the 1830s. The moon hangs above the prairie. Silver light spreads across the grasslands. The landscape seems endless. And perhaps that is the first thing early settlers noticed about Texas: space. An extraordinary amount of space. Miles upon miles of open land, rolling prairies, river valleys, wooded areas, places where livestock could graze freely. To many settlers, the land offered opportunity, not only for farming, but also for raising animals. Imagine a family that has recently established a homestead near one of the growing settlements. They begin modestly: a few chickens, a handful of cattle, perhaps some horses. The animals provide food, transportation, labor, security. Over time, the herd grows. What began as a small operation gradually becomes something larger. This pattern repeated throughout Texas, one family at a time, one herd at a time. The frontier economy slowly expanded. As the stars continue shining overhead, let us imagine a typical morning on an early Texas ranch. The first light of dawn appears beyond the horizon. The air is cool, the prairie remains quiet. Then the day begins. Animals must be checked, water sources inspected, fences repaired. The work starts early and often continues until evening. Ranch life demanded patience. Unlike crops, which followed predictable growing seasons, livestock required attention throughout the year. Animals wandered. Weather affected grazing conditions. Water availability changed with the seasons. Successful ranchers learned to observe the land carefully. The frontier rewarded those who understood their environment. As our nighttime journey continues, imagine riding horseback across open prairie. The grass moves gently in the breeze. A river glimmers in the distance. The sky stretches endlessly overhead. Hours pass without encountering another traveler. The scale of the landscape feels almost impossible to comprehend. Many early settlers described Texas in similar ways. They spoke about the vastness, the openness, the feeling that the horizon never truly ended. For ranchers, that openness offered both opportunity and responsibility. Large areas of land could support livestock, yet managing that land required effort and experience. As ranches expanded, they began influencing nearby settlements. Towns provided supplies. Blacksmiths repaired equipment. General stores sold necessities. Trade increased. The success of ranches often contributed to the growth of communities, and the success of communities often supported ranching operations. The relationship benefited both. Imagine visiting a frontier town on market day. The settlement feels busier than usual. Farmers arrive from surrounding areas. Ranchers bring livestock. Merchants prepare for increased business. The streets fill with conversation. News spreads quickly. People exchange information about weather conditions, crop yields, and opportunities elsewhere. These gatherings strengthen the connections between settlements and the surrounding countryside. The frontier may appear vast and isolated, yet communities become linked through networks of trade and cooperation. As midnight drifts quietly across Texas, another important animal enters our story: the horse. Few animals influenced frontier life more significantly. Horses provided transportation, assisted with ranch work, made long journeys possible, and connected distant settlements across enormous distances. Imagine preparing for a journey between frontier communities. Without a horse, the trip might require days of walking. With a horse, travel becomes far more manageable for many settlers. Horses were not luxuries. They were necessities. Children learned to ride from an early age. Adults depended upon them daily. The bond between people and horses became an important part of frontier culture. As our journey continues beneath the stars, let us pause beside a ranch house late at night. The day's work is complete. The animals are settled. The family has gone to bed. Outside, the prairie stretches toward the horizon. The only sounds are insects, distant wildlife, and the occasional movement of animals in nearby pastures. The scene feels peaceful, yet behind that peace lies countless hours of labor. The ranch exists because people worked hard to create it. The fences, the barns, the wells, the homes, everything required effort, and that effort helped transform the Texas frontier. One of the most fascinating aspects of early Texas is how quickly communities evolved. A place that consisted of only a few cabins might become a thriving settlement within a decade. A small ranch might expand dramatically over time. Roads improved, trade increased, families arrived. The frontier changed continuously. Yet despite those changes, certain qualities remained constant. The importance of hard work, the value of cooperation, the connection between people and the land. These themes appear again and again throughout the history of Texas settlements. As the night grows deeper, imagine a rancher standing outside beneath the stars. The prairie lies silent around him. The moonlight illuminates the grasslands. The settlement nearest his ranch rests quietly in the distance. Perhaps he reflects on how much has changed. Perhaps he thinks about future plans. Perhaps he simply enjoys the stillness. Whatever thoughts occupy his mind, they belong to a world still being built. The Texas frontier remains young. Many towns are only beginning to grow. Many opportunities remain unexplored. The future is uncertain, yet optimism remains strong. The same optimism we have encountered throughout our journey. The belief that tomorrow can be better than today. The belief that hard work matters. The belief that communities can grow and prosper. Those beliefs helped shape the settlements of early Texas, and they continue shaping the story of the frontier as our journey moves forward. The stars remain bright above us. The rivers continue their patient flow. The ranches rest quietly across the prairie, and throughout Texas, families sleep peacefully while their communities continue evolving one day at a time. Ahead lie even greater changes, more settlers, new towns, growing connections between distant regions. The frontier is becoming more organized, more connected, more established. But tonight, beneath the endless Texas sky, the ranches and settlements rest together in peaceful silence. And our journey continues onward through the sleeping landscapes of early Texas. The stars continue shining over Texas. The ranches rest quietly beneath the moonlight. The rivers flow steadily through valleys and prairies. And across the frontier, scattered settlements sleep peacefully beneath the vast night sky. For generations, these communities depended upon the land around them. The rivers provided water, the fields provided crops, the ranches provided livestock. Yet as settlements grew larger and more numerous, another need became increasingly important: connection. A settlement could not remain isolated forever. Families needed supplies, merchants needed customers, farmers needed markets, news needed to travel. People needed ways to move between communities. And so, slowly the frontier began weaving itself together, not with railroads, not yet, but with roads, simple roads at first, trails worn into the landscape by travelers, wagons, horses, and countless footsteps. Tonight, as we continue our journey through the early settlements of Texas, we follow those roads. Imagine standing beside a frontier road sometime in the 1830s. Moonlight falls softly across the dusty path. The road stretches toward the horizon, disappearing into darkness. It is not paved, it is not straight, it twists around rivers, hills, forests, and natural obstacles. Yet despite its simplicity, this road is important because roads create connections, and connections create communities. Imagine traveling this road during daylight. A wagon moves slowly across the prairie. Its wheels creak steadily. The horses pull patiently. The journey is not fast, but speed is not the goal. Reaching the destination is. For many settlers, travel required careful planning. A trip to another town might consume an entire day, sometimes several days. Food must be packed, water carried, weather considered. Every journey becomes an undertaking, yet people travel anyway, because travel brings opportunity, and opportunity encourages growth. As the night remains calm around us, imagine arriving at a crossroads. One road leads toward a river settlement. Another leads toward a growing ranching community. A third continues toward newer settlements farther west. The crossroads feels important. Travelers stop here. Conversations happen here. Information is exchanged here. The movement of people slowly creates a network connecting the frontier. That network becomes stronger with each passing year. As roads improve, another familiar sight begins appearing across Texas: the stagecoach. Imagine hearing one approach from a distance. First comes the faint sound of horses, then the rumble of wheels. Gradually, the coach appears, traveling beneath the bright Texas sun. Passengers sit inside, mail is carried aboard, news travels with it. The arrival of a stagecoach often becomes an event. People gather to watch, letters are delivered. Travelers step down and stretch their legs. Fresh horses may be prepared. The stagecoach links communities separated by great distances. And for many settlements, that connection feels invaluable. As we continue our journey beneath the stars, imagine a small stagecoach stop standing beside a road. The building is modest, perhaps only a few rooms, yet it serves an important purpose. Travelers can rest, horses can be changed, meals can be prepared. The stop becomes a small island of hospitality within a vast landscape. Throughout Texas, similar locations begin appearing. Some remain small, others eventually grow into towns of their own. History often works that way. A simple stop along a road becomes a gathering place. A gathering place becomes a settlement. A settlement becomes a community. As midnight drifts across the frontier, let us think about communication. Today, news travels instantly. Messages cross continents in moments. But in early Texas, information moved at the speed of transportation. A letter traveled by horse. A newspaper traveled by wagon. A message traveled with whoever happened to be heading in the right direction. Imagine waiting for news from a distant family member. Perhaps weeks have passed, maybe longer. Then one afternoon, a stagecoach arrives. Among the mail is a letter. The moment feels important, exciting, personal. For frontier families, letters often served as precious connections to loved ones living far away. The arrival of mail helped make the world feel smaller, and the roads made that possible. As our nighttime journey continues, imagine a merchant preparing for a supply shipment. Goods have been ordered from another settlement. The delivery may take time. Road conditions matter. Weather matters. River crossings matter. Many factors influence whether supplies arrive on schedule. When the shipment finally appears, it represents more than merchandise. It represents connection. Proof that the settlement is becoming part of a larger economic network. Little by little, Texas grows more connected. As settlements communicate more frequently, communities begin influencing one another. Ideas spread, opportunities spread, knowledge spreads. A successful farming technique in one area may eventually appear in another. A new business idea may travel along a road. A family hearing about available land may decide to relocate. Movement creates possibility, and possibility attracts more movement. The cycle continues. As the stars move slowly overhead, another traveler appears on our road. Imagine a young settler riding horseback between communities. The journey is long but peaceful. Prairies stretch endlessly around him. Birds cross the sky. Rivers provide opportunities to rest and water his horse. Hours pass quietly. Travel on the frontier often encouraged reflection. There were few distractions. No engines, no radios, no constant noise, only the landscape, the road, and one's thoughts. Many settlers likely spent long journeys thinking about the future, thinking about their families, thinking about the communities they hoped to build. The roads carried more than people and supplies. They carried dreams. As the night deepens, let us pause beside a hill overlooking several settlements in the distance. A few lanterns glow faintly. Roads connect one community to another. The pattern becomes visible. What once existed as isolated settlements is gradually becoming a region, a connected frontier. The transformation is subtle, yet profound, and it marks an important step in the growth of Texas because thriving communities rarely develop alone. They grow through relationships, through trade, through communication, through movement. The roads make all of those things possible. As our journey continues, the frontier feels different than it did earlier. The settlements are larger, the connections are stronger, the future seems closer. Many residents sense that change is accelerating. New families continue arriving. New businesses continue opening. New opportunities continue emerging. The frontier remains challenging, but it also feels increasingly hopeful. The stars remain bright above us. The stagecoaches rest for the night. The roads stretch quietly across the prairie. And throughout Texas, communities continue drawing closer together. Ahead lie even greater transformations, more growth, more settlements, and eventually events that will shape the future of Texas in profound ways. But tonight, the roads remain peaceful. The travelers rest. The horses sleep. And the frontier dreams beneath an endless canopy of stars. Our journey continues onward through the connected settlements of early Texas, following the roads that help turn isolated communities into a growing frontier society. The roads lie quiet beneath the stars. The stagecoaches have completed their journeys for the day. The horses rest in their stables. The rivers continue flowing through the darkness, connecting valleys, farms, ranches, and settlements across the Texas frontier. Above it all stretches the vast night sky, clear, endless, filled with stars. And beneath those stars, something remarkable is happening. The settlements we have visited throughout our journey are no longer simply clusters of cabins and farms. They are becoming communities, communities with traditions, communities with memories, communities with identities, all their own. Tonight, as we continue exploring the early settlements of Texas, we will spend time in those growing frontier towns and discover how people transformed isolated settlements into places that truly felt like home. Imagine arriving in a Texas town during the middle of the 1830s. The settlement remains modest by modern standards, yet compared to its earliest days, it has changed dramatically. More homes stand along the roads, new businesses have appeared, families continue arriving, children fill the schoolhouse, the church congregation has grown, the town feels alive, and perhaps most importantly, it feels permanent. That feeling of permanence matters. People begin planting shade trees, constructing larger buildings, investing in long-term projects. When settlers first arrived, survival often occupied most of their attention. Now, Many families can begin thinking beyond survival. They can begin thinking about community. As the stars shine quietly above us, imagine walking through the town on a market day. The streets are busier than usual. Farmers arrive with produce. Ranchers bring livestock. Merchants display goods. Neighbors greet one another warmly. Conversations fill the air. The market serves many purposes. People buy and sell goods, but they also exchange information, share stories, discuss opportunities. The market becomes one of the social centers of town life. Imagine a farmer arriving early in the morning. He ties his horse nearby and walks among the stalls. Perhaps he purchases supplies. Perhaps he sells part of his harvest. Perhaps he simply enjoys seeing friends he has not spoken with recently. These gatherings help strengthen community ties. The frontier may still be vast, but moments like these make it feel smaller, more connected. As our journey continues through the peaceful night, another important aspect of community life begins to emerge: celebrations. Human beings have always celebrated important moments: harvests, weddings, religious holidays, community achievements. The settlers of Texas were no different. Imagine a celebration taking place in a frontier town after a successful harvest season. Families gather from miles around. Food is shared. Musicians arrive with fiddles and other instruments. Children run through open fields. Neighbors laugh together. For a few hours, the worries of daily life fade into the background. The event becomes a reminder that life is not only about work, it is also about relationships, joy, and shared experiences. Many frontier celebrations remain simple, yet their simplicity often made them meaningful. No elaborate decorations, no grand performances, just people coming together. Sometimes the most memorable moments are the simplest ones. As midnight settles gently across the Texas landscape, imagine stepping inside a church during one of these growing years. The building is modest. Wooden benches fill the room. Lantern light glows softly against the walls. Families gather for worship, community meetings, and important discussions. The church serves not only spiritual needs but practical ones as well. Announcements are made there. Decisions are discussed there. People support one another there. In many towns, the church becomes one of the most important institutions, a symbol of stability, a place where residents gather during both joyful and difficult times. As settlements mature, they begin developing traditions unique to their communities. Every town acquires its own personality, its own stories, its own way of doing things. Imagine two frontier towns separated by many miles. Both contain farms, both contain stores, both contain churches, yet each feels slightly different. Perhaps one town is known for its market, another for its hospitality, another for a successful school. These differences create local identities, and local identities help communities feel distinct. The people living there take pride in their town. They speak warmly about it. They invest energy into improving it. The settlement becomes more than a place. It becomes part of who they are. As the stars continue moving overhead, let us think about the role of storytelling. Long before movies, television, or the internet, stories served as one of the primary forms of entertainment. Families gathered around fireplaces. Neighbors sat together on porches. Travelers shared experiences from distant places. Stories traveled along roads just as surely as wagons and stagecoaches did. Imagine an evening gathering after supper. Several families sit outside beneath the stars. The air is cool. The day has ended. Someone begins telling a story. Perhaps it concerns an early settler. Perhaps a memorable journey. Perhaps an amusing event from town history. The listeners smile, laugh, ask questions. The story becomes part of the community's shared memory. Years later, someone else will tell it again. And so local history is preserved, one story at a time. As our nighttime journey continues, another tradition appears: neighbor helping neighbor. We have seen examples of this before, yet as towns grow, the practice becomes even more important. Imagine a family whose barn has been damaged by a storm. News spreads quickly. Soon neighbors arrive. Some bring tools, others bring materials. Together, they repair the damage. No contracts, no complicated arrangements. Simply people helping one another because they understand the importance of community. Such acts of cooperation helped many frontier towns survive difficult times, and they contributed to the strong sense of connection often found within early settlements. As the night deepens, the town gradually grows quiet once more. The market stalls are empty, the church doors are closed, families have returned home, lanterns glow softly in windows. The streets rest beneath the moonlight, yet the community feels stronger than before, more established, more confident, more rooted. The settlement has begun creating traditions, and traditions have a remarkable ability to endure. Long after individual buildings disappear, long after roads change, long after generations pass, traditions help communities remember who they are. The frontier continues evolving, the towns continue growing, and the people continue building lives beneath the vast Texas sky. Many challenges still lie ahead. Many opportunities remain undiscovered. Yet tonight, as we stand quietly beneath the stars, it becomes clear that something important has already been accomplished. The settlers have done more than build houses and roads. They have built communities, places where people belong, places where memories are created, places where future generations will grow up and call home. The stars shine brightly above. The roads stretch peacefully across the prairie. The towns rest quietly in the darkness. And throughout Texas, the traditions of frontier life continue taking shape. One gathering, one celebration, and one story at a time. Our journey moves onward through the growing communities of early Texas, carried gently beneath the endless canopy of stars. The stars continue their slow journey across the Texas sky. The frontier towns sleep peacefully beneath them. Market stalls stand empty. Churches rest in silence. The roads that carried travelers throughout the day now lie quiet beneath the moonlight. Only the rivers continue moving, steady and patient, flowing through the darkness, just as they did long before the first settlers arrived. Tonight, as our journey through the early settlements of Texas continues, we arrive at another important chapter: the arrival of new people, the expansion of the frontier, and the steady growth of communities across a land that still feels vast and largely unexplored. Imagine standing on a ridge overlooking the Texas countryside, sometime during the late 1830s. The moonlight reveals an enormous landscape. Prairies stretch toward distant horizons. Rivers wind through forests and valleys. Scattered settlements glow faintly in the darkness. Compared to only a few years earlier, much has changed. More homes, more farms, more roads, more towns. The frontier is growing, and with that growth comes a constant flow of newcomers. Imagine a family traveling toward Texas. The journey has taken weeks, perhaps months. Their wagon carries everything they own: tools, furniture, clothing, seeds, family keepsakes. The possessions represent years of effort and memory. Ahead lies uncertainty, yet also possibility. The decision to move has not been easy. Leaving behind familiar places rarely is. Friends remain behind. Family members remain behind. Known routines remain behind. But opportunity waits ahead. And for many people, opportunity is worth the risk. As the stars shine quietly above us, imagine the moment that family first reaches a Texas settlement. The sight is reassuring. After miles of open land, there are buildings. Smoke rises from chimneys. People move through the streets. Children play nearby. The settlement feels welcoming. It feels alive. And perhaps most importantly, it feels hopeful. The newcomers are not arriving in an empty wilderness. They are arriving in a community, a place where others have already begun building lives. That makes all the difference. As more settlers arrive, the frontier begins changing in subtle ways. New farms appear along rivers. Additional roads connect distant communities. Businesses expand. Schools welcome more students. Church congregations grow. The changes occur gradually, often so gradually that residents hardly notice them. Yet when viewed over many years, the transformation becomes remarkable. Imagine returning to a settlement after a decade away. The place feels familiar, yet different. New buildings stand where open land once existed. More families call the community home. The streets feel busier. The future feels larger. Growth has a way of creating momentum. Success attracts more success. Opportunity attracts more opportunity. And communities often expand faster than anyone initially expected. As midnight drifts peacefully across the frontier, another important aspect of expansion becomes visible: diversity of experience. The people arriving in Texas come from many backgrounds, different regions, different traditions, different skills. Some are farmers, others are craftsmen, some are merchants, others are teachers. Each person contributes something unique, and together those contributions strengthen the growing settlements. Imagine visiting a frontier town where several new families have recently arrived. The newcomers bring fresh ideas, different techniques, new perspectives. The exchange benefits everyone. Communities become more resilient when they contain a variety of experiences and abilities. This process occurs throughout Texas as settlements continue expanding. As our nighttime journey continues, let us follow a road leading farther west, away from the older settlements, away from the more established communities, toward newer frontiers. The road is rough. The landscape feels wilder. Signs of settlement become less frequent. Yet even here, change is underway. A cabin appears beside a river. A small farm emerges from the prairie. A trading post opens along a travel route. The familiar pattern begins once again. Settlement, growth, community. The frontier keeps moving, not because people are dissatisfied with existing towns, but because opportunity continues drawing them forward. The desire to build something new remains powerful. Imagine a young couple arriving at a piece of land they have selected for their future home. The area is beautiful. A nearby creek provides water. Trees offer building materials. The prairie stretches toward distant hills. For now, there is little here, yet in their minds they can already see what might exist someday: a house, a barn, fields, perhaps children playing nearby, perhaps neighbors arriving in future years. Every settlement begins with imagination. Before buildings appear, someone must first imagine them. Before communities exist, someone must believe they can exist. As the stars continue shining above the Texas frontier, it becomes clear that belief is one of the most important resources settlers possess. Not belief that success is guaranteed, but belief that success is possible. That possibility encourages action. It encourages effort. It encourages people to continue moving forward despite uncertainty. As the night deepens, let us pause beside a small settlement that has recently begun taking shape. Only a few homes stand there. A simple road passes nearby. The population remains small, yet there is energy in the air. the feeling that something is beginning, the feeling that the future is arriving one day at a time. Perhaps that feeling existed in every town that would later become important. Before growth, before prosperity, before recognition, there was simply possibility. And possibility often begins quietly. As our journey moves onward, another interesting change becomes visible. The frontier no longer feels quite as isolated as it once did. Roads connect communities. Travelers move between settlements. Trade continues increasing. Information spreads more quickly. People begin thinking beyond their immediate surroundings. A growing sense of regional identity emerges. The settlements are still young, yet they are becoming part of something larger. A network of communities connected by shared experiences, shared challenges, and shared hopes for the future. The rivers continue flowing beneath the moonlight. The roads stretch across the prairie. The settlements rest peacefully beneath the stars. And throughout Texas, new families continue arriving. New homes continue being built. New chapters continue being written. The frontier remains vast, but it feels increasingly alive, increasingly connected, increasingly confident. Ahead lie even greater transformations. The settlements will continue growing, the communities will continue evolving, and the story of Texas will continue expanding beyond the horizons that seem so distant tonight. For now, however, the frontier sleeps. The stars remain bright overhead. The roads remain quiet, and across the Texas landscape, countless dreams of tomorrow rest peacefully beneath the endless night sky. Our journey continues onward, following the newcomers whose hopes and determination help shape the future of early Texas. The night continues across Texas. The roads are quiet once more. The wagons have stopped for the evening. The settlements rest beneath a canopy of stars that stretches from one horizon to the other. A cool breeze moves gently through the grasslands. The rivers continue their endless journey through valleys and forests. And throughout the frontier, families sleep peacefully within homes built by their own hands. For hours now, we have followed the story of early Texas settlements. We have watched small communities appear beside rivers. We have seen roads connect distant towns. We have followed settlers as they built homes, farms, schools, churches, and businesses. Tonight, our journey takes us to a question that no one living on the frontier could fully answer. Which towns would survive? Which settlements would grow? And which would quietly fade into history? Imagine standing beside a river sometime during the 1840s. The moon reflects softly upon the water. Nearby, a settlement rests beneath the stars. The town feels promising. Families are arriving. Businesses are operating. Children attend school. The future appears bright. Yet many other settlements throughout Texas feel equally promising. At this moment, no one knows which communities will prosper for generations and which will remain small. History has not yet revealed its choices. That uncertainty is one of the most fascinating aspects of frontier life. People build communities without knowing exactly what the future holds. They simply do their best with the information available to them. Some settlements benefit from geography, a location near a major river, a position along an important road, access to fertile farmland. These advantages attract settlers and businesses. Growth follows. Other communities face greater challenges. Perhaps transportation routes change. Perhaps economic opportunities emerge elsewhere. Perhaps population growth slows. The reasons vary, yet every settlement experiences its own unique journey. As the stars drift slowly overhead, let us visit one of the towns that continues growing steadily. Imagine walking through its streets during daylight. New buildings appear each year. A larger school has been constructed. Additional businesses line the road. Families continue arriving from distant places. The settlement feels optimistic. Residents discuss plans for the future: a new bridge, a larger church, additional farmland. The possibilities seem endless. What began as a small frontier settlement is becoming something more substantial, something permanent. At least that is how it feels to the people living there. As our journey continues through the quiet night, let us visit another settlement. This one remains smaller. The population grows slowly. The community remains close-knit. Everyone knows one another. The pace of life feels gentle. There are fewer buildings, fewer businesses. Yet the town possesses something equally valuable: a strong sense of belonging. Not every settlement needed to become a large town. Some communities thrived precisely because they remained small. People valued the familiarity, the relationships, the slower rhythm of daily life. Throughout Texas history, both kinds of communities played important roles. Large towns connected regions together. Small towns preserved local traditions and close personal connections. Together, they help shape the character of the frontier. As midnight settles across the landscape, another important feature begins to emerge: courthouses. As settlements matured, local government became increasingly important. Communities needed ways to organize public life: road maintenance, property records, community decisions. Many towns eventually constructed courthouses that became central landmarks. Imagine a courthouse standing proudly in the center of a growing town. Its presence symbolizes something significant. The settlement is no longer temporary. It has become established, structured, confident about its future. Residents gather there for important meetings. Documents are stored there. Decisions are made there. The building becomes part of the identity of the town itself. As the frontier continues evolving, these institutions help create stability, and stability encourages growth. The rivers, meanwhile, continue performing their quiet work, flowing day after day, season after season, year after year. Many settlements owe their existence to nearby waterways. Imagine standing beside the Colorado River on a peaceful evening. The current moves steadily through the darkness. Trees line the banks. The sounds of insects fill the air. Nearby, a town rests quietly. The river helped bring that community into existence, provided water, supported agriculture, guided travelers, connected people. The river asks for nothing in return, yet gives so much. As the stars continue shining above us, another thought emerges. Many of the people living in these towns are witnessing history without realizing it. To them, daily life feels ordinary: a trip to the store, a church service, a school lesson, a conversation with neighbors. Yet future generations may look back on these moments with fascination. History often grows from ordinary days, from ordinary people living ordinary lives. That truth appears again and again throughout the story of Texas settlements. The communities were not built by famous individuals alone. They were built by families, teachers, farmers, merchants, carpenters, blacksmiths, children, thousands of people contributing in small ways. Together, those small contributions created something remarkable. As the night deepens, imagine standing on a hill overlooking several towns scattered across the landscape. Lantern lights glow softly below. Roads connect one settlement to another. The frontier feels different now than it did at the beginning of our journey. More connected, more organized, more settled. The wilderness remains vast, yet communities have established themselves across the land. The foundations of future Texas are taking shape. Some towns will continue growing for generations, others will remain modest communities. A few may eventually disappear, yet all contribute to the larger story. Each settlement represents people trying to create meaningful lives beneath the Texas sky, and that effort deserves to be remembered. As our journey continues beneath the stars, the night feels peaceful, the roads are quiet, the rivers move patiently through the darkness, the towns rest comfortably within the landscapes they help transform. And throughout Texas, the communities that endured continue growing one day at a time. Ahead lies another chapter, one that will bring us closer to dawn, closer to reflection, and closer to understanding the lasting legacy of the people who built these early settlements. For now, however, the frontier sleeps. The stars shine brightly overhead, and the story of Texas continues unfolding beneath the endless night sky. The night has grown quieter. The frontier towns rest beneath a sky filled with stars. The roads are empty. The stagecoaches have stopped for the evening. The rivers continue flowing through the darkness, their waters reflecting faint traces of moonlight as they wind across the Texas landscape. For a long while, we have traveled together through the early settlements of Texas. We have watched cabins rise beside rivers. We have seen roads connect distant communities. We have visited schools, churches, ranches, stores, and growing towns. And now, as the night slowly moves toward its deepest hours, our journey becomes more reflective. Because every settlement leaves something behind. Not only buildings, not only roads, but memories, legacies, stories that continue long after the people themselves are gone. Imagine standing on the edge of a frontier town late at night. The settlement is quiet. Lanterns glow softly in a few windows. The sounds of the day have faded. Only the occasional call of a distant night bird breaks the silence. In moments like this, it becomes easier to think about time. Time has a way of changing everything. The young become old. Children become parents. Small settlements become towns. Open prairie becomes farmland. And sometimes what seems permanent changes in ways no one could have predicted. The people living in these early Texas communities understood that life moved forward, yet they probably did not realize how much the future would eventually transform the world around them. Imagine a farmer standing outside his home sometime during the 1840s. The stars shine overhead. His fields stretch into the darkness. The nearby settlement continues growing. Perhaps he wonders what the town will look like in 20 years. Perhaps he imagines additional homes, larger businesses, more families. What he cannot fully imagine is how many generations will follow, how many people will walk the same roads, attend the same schools, visit the same churches. History often grows quietly. One generation lays a foundation. The next generation builds upon it. Then another generation adds something more. Little by little, communities evolve. As our journey continues through the peaceful Texas night, let us think about the trees planted by early settlers. Trees may seem like a small detail, yet they reveal something important. A person planting a tree understands that growth takes time. Years may pass before the tree provides meaningful shade. Decades may pass before it reaches its full size. The person who plants it may never enjoy its greatest benefits, and yet they plant it anyway. Many aspects of settlement were similar. Schools were built for future students. Roads were improved for future travelers. Churches were constructed for future congregations. The people who established these communities often worked not only for themselves but for generations they would never meet. There is something deeply admirable about that kind of thinking. As midnight drifts across the frontier, imagine walking through one of these towns many years after its founding. The buildings appear more established now. Trees provide shade along roads. Children who once attended the first schoolhouse have grown into adults. New families have arrived. Old stories have become local history. The settlement feels rooted, connected to the land around it. Many towns reach this stage gradually. The changes happen so slowly that residents barely notice them. Yet when viewed across decades, the transformation was remarkable. A simple cluster of cabins became a thriving community. A rough trail became a well-traveled road. A small gathering of families became a town with its own traditions and identity. The frontier matured. As the stars continue shining above us, another thought begins to emerge. Many early settlers never became famous. Their names do not appear in textbooks, their portraits do not hang in museums, and yet their contributions mattered. History is not built solely by famous individuals. It is built by ordinary people performing ordinary tasks day after day. A teacher helping students learn to read, a blacksmith repairing tools, a merchant opening a store before sunrise, a parent caring for a family, a farmer planting crops, a child carrying water from a nearby river. These actions may seem small, yet together they create communities, and communities shape history. Imagine standing outside a schoolhouse on a quiet evening. The building rests beneath the stars. No students remain inside. The lessons have ended for the day, yet the knowledge shared within those walls will continue influencing lives for years to come. Education creates ripples. One student learns something new, then teaches it to others. The impact spreads outward across time. The same could be said for every institution we have visited throughout our journey. Churches, stores, roads, ranches, families, each contributes something lasting, even if the people involved never fully realize it. As the night deepens further, the air grows cooler. A gentle breeze moves across the prairie. The grass sways softly beneath the moonlight. The settlements remain quiet, and it becomes easier to appreciate the courage required to build a life on the frontier. Not dramatic courage, not the courage of battle, but the quieter courage of persistence. The courage to wake early and work another day. The courage to invest in a future that remains uncertain. The courage to build something without knowing exactly how it will turn out. That kind of courage appears throughout the story of early Texas. Again and again, families arrived, communities formed, challenges emerged, people adapted. The process continued, and because it continued, the settlements survived. As our journey moves onward, the stars begin shifting slowly toward the western horizon. The night is advancing. Somewhere far away, dawn waits. Beyond the darkness, not yet visible, not yet approaching, but present nonetheless. The frontier towns sleep peacefully beneath the sky. The rivers continue flowing. The roads remain still. And throughout Texas, the legacy of the early settlers quietly endures. It endures in the communities they built, in the traditions they established, in the values they passed from one generation to the next. The story of Texas is still unfolding. Yet much of that story began with the settlements we have explored tonight, with ordinary people living ordinary lives beneath extraordinary skies. And as the stars continue their silent journey overhead, we carry those stories forward, one memory at a time, one community at a time, one peaceful night at a time. The frontier remains quiet, the towns rest peacefully, and our journey through the early settlements of Texas continues gently onward beneath the endless stars. The night is beginning to change, not in a dramatic way, not yet. The stars still shine brightly above the Texas frontier. The rivers continue their quiet journey through the darkness. The towns we have visited throughout our travels remain asleep beneath the vast sky. And yet, if you look carefully toward the eastern horizon, you might notice something subtle. The darkness no longer feels quite as deep as it did before. Morning remains far away, but it is coming, as all mornings eventually do. Tonight, as our journey through the early settlements of Texas continues, we enter a time of reflection. For many hours, we have followed settlers as they built homes, schools, churches, roads, ranches, and towns. We have watched communities emerge from open land. We have listened to the stories of ordinary people creating lives on a challenging frontier. And now, as the long Texas night slowly moves toward dawn, we can begin to consider what all of those efforts ultimately created. Imagine standing on a hill overlooking the Texas countryside, sometime during the middle of the 19th century. Below you lie farms and settlements. Roads connect neighboring communities. Rivers wind through the landscape. Smoke rises from chimneys. The signs of human life are everywhere. Yet only a generation earlier, much of this activity did not exist. The transformation happened remarkably quickly. One family arrived, then another. A road was cleared, a school was built, a store opened, a church gathered its first congregation. Small decisions accumulated over time. And together, those decisions reshaped the landscape. History often works this way, not through sudden changes alone, but through countless small actions repeated day after day. Imagine a child born in one of these settlements during its earliest years. The community around them consists of only a few families, a handful of buildings, a rough road leading toward neighboring settlements. As the child grows older, the town grows as well. New businesses appear, additional families arrive, the school expands, the church congregation increases. By adulthood, the settlement may feel completely different from the place where they were born. They witness change not as a single event, but as a gradual process, and gradual change is often the most powerful kind. As the stars continue their slow journey overhead, let us think about the people who chose to remain. Throughout our story, we have met settlers arriving in Texas, but many of them stayed year after year, decade after decade. They watched droughts come and go. They watched roads improve. They watched children grow into adults. They watched towns evolve around them. And through all those changes, they continued contributing to their communities. Imagine an elderly resident sitting on a porch late one evening. The stars fill the sky. The air is cool. The town rests quietly nearby. Perhaps they remember the earliest days, the first homes, the first school, the first church service, the first market. The memories stretch back across decades, and now, looking at the growing town before them, they can see how much has changed. There is a special satisfaction in witnessing something grow, especially when you helped build it. Many early settlers experienced exactly that feeling. As our journey continues through the peaceful darkness, another important idea begins to emerge. The frontier was never truly finished. People often speak of frontiers as though they have clear beginnings and endings, but life rarely works that way. Communities continue evolving, roads continue improving, families continue arriving, opportunities continue appearing. Even after a settlement becomes established, growth continues. The story simply enters a new chapter. Imagine a merchant who opened a small store during the town's earliest years. At first, customers were few. Supplies were difficult to obtain. The future felt uncertain. Years later, the store serves a thriving community. The streets outside are busier. The population is larger. The risks once taken now seem worthwhile. Yet at the time, success was never guaranteed. That uncertainty appears throughout the story of early Texas. Again and again, people invested effort into futures they could not fully see. And because they did, communities prospered. As the night grows quieter still, the rivers continue their steady flow. The Brazos, the Colorado, the Trinity, the Guadalupe. The rivers we have followed throughout our journey remain constant companions. They witnessed the arrival of settlers. They witnessed the growth of towns. They witnessed generations of families building lives along their banks. The rivers connect past and present in a way few other things can. Imagine standing beside a river before sunrise. The water moves silently through the darkness. Trees line the shore. The stars reflect faintly upon the surface. The scene feels timeless, and in many ways it is. Generations come and go. Communities rise and change, yet the river continues its journey. Patient, enduring, steady. As our story approaches the final chapters, it becomes easier to understand why so many settlers chose to remain in Texas. Certainly, opportunity played a role, but so did attachment. People become connected to places, connected to landscapes, connected to communities. A road traveled every day, a church attended for years, a river crossed countless times, a home built with one's own hands. These things create bonds, and those bonds help transform a settlement into something more meaningful, into a home. As the stars begin drifting lower in the sky, the frontier remains peaceful. The towns sleep quietly. The roads are still. The prairie stretches toward distant horizons. And somewhere beyond those horizons, dawn continues its slow approach. Not visible yet, but closer than before. The first settlers could not know exactly what Texas would become. They could not imagine the millions of people who would one day call it home. They could not foresee modern cities rising from places that were once small frontier settlements. Yet they helped make those futures possible. Every cabin, every schoolhouse, every bridge, every road, every farm, every town, together, they formed the foundation upon which later generations would build. And perhaps that is the lasting lesson of our journey. History is often created by ordinary people doing ordinary things with extraordinary persistence, one day at a time, one season at a time, one generation at a time. The stars continue shining above the sleeping frontier, the rivers continue flowing through the darkness, and the settlements of early Texas rest peacefully beneath the endless sky. Morning is still some distance away. There are still stories to reflect upon, still roads to follow, still memories waiting to be revisited. For now, however, the night remains calm, the air remains cool, and our journey continues gently onward through the landscapes and legacies of early Texas. The night is slowly loosening its hold on the Texas frontier. The stars still shine above the prairie. The rivers still move quietly through the darkness. The towns and settlements we have visited throughout our journey remain asleep beneath the vast sky. Yet something is changing. Far to the east, beyond the rivers and grasslands, the horizon carries the faintest hint of approaching light. Not sunlight, not yet, just a subtle softening of the darkness. The kind of change that is easy to miss unless you are watching carefully. And perhaps that is fitting, because many of the most important changes in Texas happen the same way, gradually, quietly, one small step at a time. Tonight, as our journey through the early settlements of Texas continues, we find ourselves in the hours just before dawn, a time when the world feels especially still, a time when reflection comes naturally. Imagine standing outside a frontier town during these peaceful hours. The streets are empty. The general store remains closed. The church stands silent. The schoolhouse waits patiently for another day. The buildings seem almost timeless beneath the stars. And for a moment it becomes easy to imagine all the generations who have passed through these places, the children who grew up here, the families who built homes here, the merchants who opened shops here, the farmers who worked nearby fields. Each person contributed something, even if only in a small way. History is often compared to a great river. Countless streams flow together to create something larger than themselves. The same is true of communities. One family arrives, then another. A teacher begins a school. A blacksmith opens a shop. A road connects neighboring settlements. Each contribution may seem modest on its own, yet together they create towns, regions, states, entire societies. As the stars continue their slow movement across the sky, imagine visiting one of the settlements we encountered earlier in our journey. The town is larger now than it once was. Trees planted years ago have grown tall. Children born in the settlement's earliest days are now adults. New buildings stand beside older ones. The community carries visible signs of time passing, and yet certain things remain unchanged. The river still flows nearby. Neighbors still greet one another. Families still gather together. The essential rhythms of life continue. There is comfort in that continuity. As our journey moves gently forward, let us think about the roads we have followed throughout the night. Those early roads connected settlements across great distances. They carried wagons, horses, stagecoaches, travelers, and dreams. Over time, some roads improved, others disappeared. Yet every road represented a desire for connection. Human beings rarely thrive in complete isolation. We seek community, communication, shared experiences. The roads of early Texas helped make those things possible. Imagine a traveler pausing on a hill before dawn. The journey has been long. The air is cool. The prairie stretches endlessly before him. In the distance, a settlement rests quietly beneath the fading stars. A few lanterns still glow in windows. The sight brings reassurance. A reminder that no matter how vast the frontier may seem, communities exist within it. Places where people belong. Places where people help one another. Places where life continues. As the eastern horizon grows slightly brighter, another thought begins to emerge. The people who built early Texas were not trying to create history. They were trying to create homes. That distinction matters. History often appears grand when viewed from a distance, but for those living through it, daily life usually feels ordinary. A parent preparing breakfast, a child walking to school, a merchant opening a store, a farmer checking crops. These actions may not seem historic, yet they are the very substance from which history is made. Imagine a mother standing in a cabin doorway as dawn approaches. The world around her remains quiet. The settlement sleeps. Soon another day will begin. Chores will need attention. Meals will need preparation. The familiar routines of life will continue. She is not thinking about future generations. She is thinking about today, and yet her efforts contribute to something much larger. The same could be said for countless people throughout Texas. History grows from ordinary moments repeated over time. As our nighttime journey continues, the stars begin losing a little of their brightness. The change is subtle, gradual. The strongest stars remain visible. The fainter ones begin to fade. The prairie itself seems to awaken. A bird calls somewhere in the distance. The sound is brief. Then silence returns. But it is a different silence now. A silence filled with anticipation. The world is preparing for morning. Imagine standing beside the Brazos River at this hour. The water moves quietly past. Mist hovers above the surface. Trees line the shore. The landscape feels peaceful beyond description. For generations, people stood beside these same waters. Some arrived seeking opportunity, some were born nearby. Some spent their entire lives along the river. The river witnessed all of them, and it continues flowing today, a constant presence amid changing times. As the sky slowly brightens, another realization emerges. Many of the settlements we have visited throughout our journey still exist in some form. Some grew into cities, some remained small towns, some changed dramatically, yet their origins remain important. The foundations laid by early settlers continue supporting communities even now. The roads may be different, the buildings may be newer, the populations may be larger, yet the spirit of those early settlements remains. The willingness to build, to cooperate, to adapt, to hope. Those qualities helped shape Texas from the very beginning, and they continue shaping it today. The horizon is noticeably lighter now. The darkness is beginning to retreat. Morning is still approaching slowly, but its arrival is no longer a distant possibility. It is becoming real. The frontier remains peaceful. The towns remain quiet. The rivers continue flowing. And above them all, the final stars of the night shine gently over the sleeping Texas landscape. Soon, the first true light of dawn will arrive. Soon, the prairie will reveal its colors once more. Soon, another day will begin. But for now, we remain in this beautiful moment between night and morning, a moment of reflection, a moment of gratitude, a moment to remember the people whose lives helped shape the early settlements of Texas. And as the darkness continues to soften around us, our journey moves calmly onward toward the first light of a new day. The first light of morning is beginning to appear. Far beyond the eastern horizon, a faint glow spreads across the sky. The stars are still visible overhead. The rivers still move quietly through the darkness. The settlement still rests peacefully beneath the vast Texas sky. Yet the world is changing. The long night that has accompanied us throughout our journey is slowly coming to an end. And as the first light arrives, the landscape begins revealing itself once more. Imagine standing on a gentle rise overlooking the Texas frontier. The air is cool. A light breeze moves through the grass. The horizon carries shades of pale gray and soft blue. The darkness has not disappeared, but it is retreating, gradually, patiently, just as the frontier itself changed gradually through the years. For hours, we have traveled through the story of early Texas settlements. We have followed rivers and roads, visited schools and churches, met farmers, merchants, teachers, ranchers, travelers, and families. We have watched small communities emerge from open land and grow into towns. And now, as morning approaches, it feels natural to look back on everything we have seen. Imagine returning to one of the earliest settlements from our story, not as it appeared when the first families arrived, but many years later. The town has grown. The roads are more established. The buildings are more numerous. Trees planted long ago now provide shade. The community feels settled, confident, enduring. Yet beneath all those visible changes remains the same foundation. People willing to work, people willing to cooperate, people willing to invest in a future they could not fully see. The first light of dawn reveals the results of their efforts. As the eastern sky brightens, the outlines of rivers become clearer. The fields emerge from the darkness. The rooftops of homes catch faint traces of morning light. The landscape feels calm and welcoming, a place where generations have lived, worked, and dreamed. Imagine a child waking early on a spring morning in one of these frontier towns. The house is quiet. Most of the family is still asleep. Curious, the child steps outside. The air is cool. The grass is damp with dew. The sky glows softly in the east. For a few moments, the world belongs only to the morning. The child watches the first signs of daylight appear across the prairie. Perhaps without realizing it, that memory will remain for a lifetime. Many of the most meaningful memories are simple ones. A sunrise, a family gathering, a walk along a river, a conversation on a porch. The history of Texas is filled with such moments. Not only major events, not only famous names, but countless ordinary experiences shared by ordinary people. As the stars begin fading one by one, another thought emerges. Every generation inherits something from those who came before. Roads, schools, buildings, traditions, values. The early settlers of Texas inherited knowledge from previous generations, then added their own contributions. The next generation built upon those contributions. And so the process continued. The story of Texas is not the story of a single generation. It is the story of many generations working together across time. Imagine standing beside a courthouse square in a growing frontier town. The buildings around you are quiet in the early morning. The streets are empty. Yet beneath the stillness lies the accumulated effort of thousands of people. Carpenters who built structures, farmers who supplied food, teachers who educated children, merchants who opened businesses, families who created homes. Every community is ultimately a collection of human effort, and every generation leaves its mark. As our journey continues through the peaceful dawn, birds begin to stir in the trees. The first songs of morning drift across the landscape. The sound is gentle, comforting, a reminder that another day is beginning. For the people living in these settlements, dawn often marked the start of another busy day. Animals needed care, fields required attention, stores needed opening, lessons needed teaching. The work of community building never truly ended, yet there was satisfaction in that work because progress could be seen. A growing town, a successful harvest, a thriving school, a stronger community. These achievements rewarded effort and encouraged people to keep moving forward. The horizon now glows with shades of gold. The darkness continues fading. The rivers reflect the changing colors of the sky. The frontier seems to awaken around us. Imagine traveling along one of the roads we have followed throughout our story. The same road that once carried settlers arriving with wagons full of hope. The same road that connected farms and towns. The same road that carried mail, news, and opportunity. Now it stretches peacefully through the morning light, a symbol of connection, a symbol of movement, a symbol of the countless journeys that helped shape Texas. As the dawn grows brighter, it becomes easier to appreciate how much has changed since the beginning of our journey. The frontier we first encountered was sparsely settled. The communities were small, the future uncertain. Now the settlements feel established, connected, confident. The foundations of modern Texas have begun taking shape, not through dramatic transformations, but through years of patience, cooperation, and perseverance. The same qualities we have encountered again and again throughout the night. The stars have nearly disappeared now. Only a few remain visible in the brightening sky. The prairie stretches before us. The rivers flow steadily onward. The towns rest quietly as morning approaches. And throughout the Texas landscape, the legacy of the early settlers remains visible. Visible in communities, visible in traditions, visible in the enduring spirit of the people who call this frontier home. The first true light of day is almost here. The sunrise waits just beyond the horizon, and with it comes the final chapter of our journey through the early settlements of Texas. For now, let us enjoy this peaceful moment between night and day, a moment of stillness, a moment of reflection, a moment to appreciate the remarkable story that unfolded beneath these vast Texas skies. And as the dawn continues brightening around us, we move gently toward the final sunrise of our journey. The sun rises slowly over Texas. At first, only a thin line of gold appears above the eastern horizon. Then, little by little, the light grows stronger. The darkness that has accompanied us throughout the night begins to fade away. The stars disappear into the brightening sky. The rivers catch the first rays of morning. The fields glow softly beneath the dawn. And across the Texas frontier, a new day begins. For many hours, we have traveled together through the story of the early settlements of Texas. We have followed winding rivers through untouched landscapes. We have walked the roads that connected distant communities. We have visited cabins, farms, schools, churches, trading posts, ranches, and growing towns. We have met settlers seeking opportunity, families building homes, children growing up beneath wide Texas skies. teachers educating future generations, merchants serving their communities, travelers carrying news between settlements. And now, as the morning sun climbs higher above the horizon, our journey reaches its final chapter. Imagine standing on a hill overlooking the Texas countryside. The sun rises steadily. Golden light spreads across the land. The rivers shimmer. The prairie seems endless. In the distance, towns begin waking for another day. Smoke rises from chimneys. Animals stir in fields and pastures. Doors open. People begin their daily routines. The scene feels peaceful, familiar, timeless. And perhaps that is because the story of settlement is, in many ways, the story of humanity itself. People arrive, they build, they work, they dream, they create homes, they create communities, and through those communities, they create the future. The early settlers of Texas did not know exactly what lay ahead. They could not see the cities that would someday rise across the state. They could not imagine the millions of people who would eventually call Texas home. They could not foresee the roads, industries, technologies, and changes that future generations would experience. They knew only their own time, their own families, their own hopes. And yet those hopes mattered, because history is often built by people who never realize how important their contributions will become. Imagine a farmer planting crops beside a river, a teacher opening a small schoolhouse, a carpenter building a church, a merchant stocking shelves inside a general store. Each person focuses on a simple task, a task that feels ordinary, a task that must be completed today. Yet together, those ordinary efforts create something extraordinary, a community. And communities have remarkable power. They provide support during difficult times. They create opportunities for future generations. They preserve knowledge. They strengthen friendships. They give people a sense of belonging. Throughout our journey, we have seen those qualities again and again in every settlement, in every town, in every family. As the sunlight spreads farther across the Texas landscape, the details become clearer. Roads emerge from the shadows. Trees reveal their colors. Buildings stand proudly beneath the morning sky. The frontier no longer feels distant or uncertain. It feels established, rooted, alive. Imagine walking slowly through one of the towns we visited earlier in our story. The streets are quiet in the early morning. The air is cool. The town is beginning to wake. A store owner prepares for the day. A teacher reviews lessons. A farmer heads toward the fields. Children still sleep peacefully in nearby homes. Everything feels calm, purposeful, hopeful. The future remains unwritten, but people are ready to meet it. That readiness may be one of the defining characteristics of the early Texas settlers. Again and again they faced uncertainty, yet they continued moving forward. They adapted to challenges. They cooperated with neighbors. They invested in schools, churches, roads, and businesses. They built communities not because success was guaranteed, but because they believed it was possible. And that belief changed the landscape. As the sun climbs higher, the rivers continue flowing just as they did during the night. The Brazos, the Colorado, the Trinity, the Guadalupe. Throughout our journey, these rivers have been faithful companions. They witnessed the arrival of settlers. They supported growing communities. They connected people across great distances. And even now, they continue their journey, steady, patient, enduring. Much like the story of Texas itself, the rivers remind us that change and continuity often exist together. Generations come and go, communities grow and evolve, yet some things remain: the land, the water, the sky, and the stories passed from one generation to the next. As our journey approaches its conclusion, let us pause one final time. Imagine standing beneath the vast Texas sky. The morning sun warms the prairie. The breeze moves gently through the grass. Birds cross the sky above. The roads stretch toward distant horizons. The towns continue beginning another day, and all around you are reminders of the people who came before, the settlers who built homes, the families who created communities, the children who became adults, the neighbors who helped one another, the countless ordinary people whose efforts shaped the future. Their names may not all be remembered, but their contributions remain. They remain in the towns they built, the traditions they established, the values they passed forward, the communities they helped create. And perhaps that is the greatest legacy of all. Not buildings, not roads, not even towns, but the idea that ordinary people working together can create something lasting, something meaningful, something that continues long after they are gone. The sun now stands fully above the horizon. The long night has ended. The frontier shines beneath the light of a new day. Our journey through the early settlements of Texas is complete. Thank you for traveling these roads, for following these rivers, for visiting these communities, and for taking the time to remember the people whose lives helped shape this remarkable chapter of American history. As the morning continues and the Texas landscape glows beneath the rising sun, allow your mind to rest. Picture the quiet rivers, the open prairie, the distant towns, the endless sky, and let those peaceful images drift gently through your thoughts. The settlers have finished their work. The towns continue their story. The rivers continue flowing. And beneath the warm light of a Texas morning, the frontier rests quietly once again until another story begins. And now, the Texas sky is bright. The roads are calm. The rivers move steadily onward. And the story of the early settlements of Texas settles peacefully into memory.